Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to walk through practice problem LIAB-03. This one's going to be all about sales taxes as well as your payroll expenses and payables. So let's dive on in. All right, first up, computing sales taxes. Flyer Corp conducts business in a state with a 4% state sales tax. If Flyer Corp remits $27,000 in sales taxes to the state government, what was the total cash collected from customers that resulted in that remittance? You're going to realize that this is a little bit backwards way of solving one of these problems relative to what you've seen in my lectures. But it's putting your conceptual knowledge to the test. So take a moment, pause the video, and see if you can remember how do these things relate that you can back into the answer of this question. When you're ready, come on back. I'll walk through the solution. All right, welcome back. Here we go. So, Flyer Corp is conducting business in a state with a 4% sales tax. Flyer Corp remits $27,000 in taxes to the government. Now, if we think about this algebraically, sales times the tax rate equals basically taxes to government. I don't have a letter for it. We'll just say it this way. This is a little bit different formula than what I've shown you in the lecture. In the lecture, when we talk about, say, cash collections and all that, we say your sales plus your sales times your rate equals your total cash collections, or C. This is a formula you should recognize that I showed you in the lecture videos. In this case, the only thing we care about really is this S times R. That's the only thing we want to know. Sales times the rate, because that's the tax piece. And that's all I'm saying right here. S times R equals the taxes to the government, because the other piece of this is the actual sales, and the combination is the collections. And so we know that the taxes paid to the government were $27,000. So we know sales times 4% equals $27,000. From here, it's just a matter of working backwards. S equals 27,000 divided by 0.04, or 27,000 divided by 0.04, $675,000. Now we have our S, 675,000. We were given our S times R, or 27,000. And so to figure out total cash collections, we simply add our S plus our S times R of 27,000. And that comes out to a grand total of, looks like $702,000. And that's all there is to it. It wasn't hard math. It was just a matter of, can you think of how to set up the problem? Can you think of how you would use these numbers to get to what's being asked? All right, next up. Understanding payroll accounting. So here's just a multiple choice. We're going to take an ease from calculations for a minute. Which of the following real-world payroll elements are represented by the salaries and wages expense account? Is it your net pay, your mandatory deductions, your gross pay, or your voluntary deductions? Take a moment and answer, or you might already have the answer. Either way, I'll be here when you're ready to walk through the solution. All right, what's represented by the salary and wages expense account? Remember, an expense is a cost incurred. In other words, what's represented by that account is the cost of the employees working for you, or their gross earnings, as we call it. And so see here, it calls it gross pay. Pay and earnings are just interchangeable terms. But your gross earnings is what the employee is contractually costing you. From that, there's a bunch of deductions that can be voluntarily or mandatorily taken out. And of course, the gross minus the deductions leads you to net, or what the employee takes home. So gross pay is equal to salary and wage expense. Net pay is what's equal to S&W payable, or in the event that you've paid it out already, cash. And the deductions are just the things that go between those two numbers, all right? All right, now back to calculations. Accounting for payroll. So here it tells us that Blue Devil Corp accrues salary and wages 2 weeks prior to paying its employee. gives you some information about the current payroll cycle, including gross pay, deductions, and basically it's just asking you record the journal entries for Blue Devil Corps' June 15th salary and wage accrual and payroll expenses. There's a little typo in here, just ignore that. So you're doing both in one problem. We're going to cover the actual accrual of employee earnings as well as the payroll expenses that the company separately incurs. So take a moment, pause the video, see if you can solve this and do these journal entries, and then come on back when you're ready and I'll walk through the solution. All right, welcome back. So here we go. June 15th is the day that everything's happening. I'm going to do this as two separate journal entries, although you could have combined it all into one. On the left, I'll do the employee earnings accrual. On the right, I'll do the payroll expenses. It says, for the current payroll cycle ending June 15th, Blue Devil Corps employees have earned $220,000. Earned means salary and wage expense. That's gross earnings. So salaries and wages expense for $220,000. And it looks like I might have to scoot this other journal entry over just a little bit. All right, it says, from that amount, they voluntarily withhold 10% for their retirement funds. So remember, all these withholdings just become essentially payables to other places. And so I'll call this one retirement payable. At 10% would be $22,000. So I'm going to put a check on that one, or I guess I'll make it a little bit more obvious. It says they withhold 15% for their federal income taxes. So Fed tax payable, 15% is going to be, let's see, 22 plus another half of that. I believe that's going to be $33,000. It says the federal government also requires a FICA tax payment of 4% from both employees and employers. So there's going to be a portion of that that comes from the employee, and therefore FICA tax payable. 4% is going to be something I'm going to pull the calculator out for. So 22000 times 0.04 comes out to 8,800. And then after that, I believe all of the information it gives us relates to the employer. In fact, it doesn't give us any more information. That's it. We're at the end of the journal entry. So at this point, I simply need to do a little math here and see the employees earned $220,000, but we pulled out $22,000 for retirement, another $33,000 for Fed taxes, and another $8,800 for FICA, which leaves us with $156,200 that gets paid to the employees, and that is our salaries and wages payable. Why is it a payable and not cash? Because it tells us up top that they accrue the salary and wages 2 weeks prior to paying the employees. So this is the accrual of the expense. 2 weeks after this, that salary and wages payable will be paid off by cash to the employees. But we've only done half of what the problem asked us to do, right? We've recorded the salary and wages accrual. What we have not done yet is the payroll expenses. So on the payroll expense side of things, remember, these are the costs to the employer. In this problem, you only had one, and that was their portion of the FICA tax. Remember, it said FICA tax payment of 4% from both employees and employers. Everything else in here was just a deduction from the employee's pay. And so all we're going to have is another FICA tax payable for $8,800, just like the employee paid, because you're paying equally. And we chalk that up, since that is a cost to the employer, we chalk that up to payroll expenses. And that's it. If we had more things that the employer was responsible for, like unemployment taxes, those would be in here as well and get added to the payroll expenses. But in this particular example, all you have is the one, and so that's the only thing that you need to worry about recording for a payroll expense. That's it for that one. All right, and that's it for this practice problem, right? So a little bit about sales taxes, a little bit about payroll. These are kind of the newest topics when it relates to current liabilities. So this practice problem goes with my current liabilities lecture series. And when we get to that section, a lot of it is recap, but this is the new stuff, sales taxes and all of the nuance that goes into actual salaries and payroll. And so I hope you found this helpful. I hope you'll join me as I go into my next lecture series and later on more practice problems. And I hope you have a great day.